toilets here that when you scale up the universe, water is more precious than gold. You need that would be more gold atoms in the universe on average than water.
Really?
I'm not sure if that's the case.
I thought that the production of gold is a bit of the astrophysicists are actually a bit of a puzzle because there's more gold than there should be according to the supernovas we've seen. Right?
Consider the stars contains gold.
Yep. We're at the end of this crazy event, so I think.
Oh, you're looking at
Ooh. Okay. I apologize. Something must have gone wrong in uploading the chair slides, so give me just a second while I do that. Let's try that again. Was there a magic trick to force the system to refresh the available slides?
there's a button I thought that does the green slide. Upload manage slides. Isn't there a cycle in the upload manage slides? I can push it.
Upload manage slide. Yeah, there we go. Share slides. Okay.
The PDF gets turned into a series of PNGs. It's kind of weird.
Okay. Yeah, so it's still seemingly converting the chair slides. Sorry about that.
The other options for you to share your.
Oh yeah.
It says chair slides at the bottom, but it's grayed out.
Yeah. Wait a second. I'm not trying to share my screen usually, but let's do this for the moment because I can't take notes then also.
Lorenzo is saying that anything that's published to the data tracker is synced with us, so it should be automatic. Are there any slide decks that are missing?
No.
I think
I think that's just the. Wait a second. I'll have to upload them in PDF again. I think that's the fastest. I think.
Oh, did you do PPT? That'll take forever.
Yeah. Sorry.
I thought it was manual.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah, I thought it involved a human. That's what someone suggested. I'm like, well, that's a good way to go.
Okay. Just give me a second. PDF. Save. slides in. There we go. Okay. Selection. Here we go. No, darn. What? Please.
I saw this slide.
Yeah. I mean, replace. This is 124.
Oh, you're ready.
Yeah. But some.
Nothing's changed.
There we go. That's the right one. Upload. Slides. There we go. And share again. Revision 02. And there it says. Oh wow! And now we're in Montreal. Sorry about all that. Okay. So you can see that it's set. All right. Welcome everybody. 7 minutes overtime to ANIMA, hosted by Sheng Yan, remote. Thomas Eckert, myself, and our secretary is Michael Richardson. And as always, the session is recorded, so behave accordingly to the wonderful new Note Well that the ISG has given to us. We're supposed to give you 30 seconds to 1 minute, and there will be test afterwards, but no, not kidding. But there is nothing new from the content, but it's really nicely polished. Please behave professional. Reserve all the nasty criticism to the documents, not the people. Be aware that the contributions are covered by patents. So if you do have patents and don't disclose them, they're violating IETF policies, is best not to discuss and leave the room then. Lots of references, specifically 2026. And yes, as I mentioned before, you're on camera. If you don't want that, in rooms like here also, be aware what you can do. And otherwise, you know, these here, red, there's this for the IETF photographer. Oh, this is the next door room, yeah. Yeah. Should I? Okay, thank you. I'll get closer to it. Okay. So in the room, you must log into the meeting room tool. And let me see. Yeah. And please contribute to the meeting notes. There again on the notes page. That's all collaborative. So share slides, just quickly going through the ANIMA document status. So we've got RFC editor cluster C484. I have no idea why it changed numbers. But we've got the JWS voucher in it. That's been waiting the longest, referencing 8366 bis. We also, since IETF 123, got Brewski Cloud into it, which was passing through the IETF and is ready to become an RFC, except for the 8366 bis misref. So thank you very much to the authors in the working group for that. And nicely, we also have one non-ANIMA working group document waiting on Brewski Cloud. So the work is already, you know, being referenced and potentially required by other work in the IETF. So then we've got Brewski PRM 23, which is unchanged since IETF 123. It finished the IESG processing by the end of July. And unless I'm, you know, missing out something, it should be fine to simply have it also be pushed into that cluster. or is there anything else anybody wants to do about that? Let me see the queue here. Stefan, why don't you go ahead, please?
Yeah. So there, we didn't have any further discussion on PRN. So there was nothing, as you wrote, there's no changes since the last or the one before the last IETF meeting. I don't expect any further changes now. The only changes would come from any things that come from RFC 8366 bis that go back, but I don't expect any changes there because we were not specific to the voucher. Based on that, from my point of view, it would be perfectly fine to go with that cluster. I think the point from Mahesh was to hold it back, that it is easier to open the draft again if something comes from 8366 bis.
Right. So, I mean, we're just going to discuss the end of working group last call for 8366 bis. So I think I'll tentatively put in to tell our AD to push it into the RFC editor cluster. And if something in the 8366 bis discussion changes, that I'll remove that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So then we've got 8366 bis, as I just mentioned. We had a working group last call in October. Sheng declared that was successful. There are, I think, a few nits and bits to be finished up, which are going to be discussed in the slot in the meeting. Then we've got good work going on the voucher and the proxy. We'll also have a slot on that. Discovery as well. That was a fun round with IANA. Then we've got Grasp distribution. That was actually parked. Sorry, so I'll park it until mid next year, and then I think maybe in 125 we should go through all the 3 parked documents and see what we can do there, because they'll have, I think, mostly authors from Asia, so it would be good time to probably have a few of them around locally. Yeah, ANIMA registrar considerations, MASA considerations. We'll have a slot in the meeting to discuss. I guess we were a little bit, lazy on them finishing up the other documents. So hopefully we can concentrate more on that. There is also, if people haven't noticed, a wonderful update to 5706 from Adrian in Ops area about making operational considerations mandatory. And while these are separate documents and a good example of why you may not even need to have them mandatory in other documents if you can build your own documents against them, but we're a little bit more privileged by being an Ops area working group. I think the document has a lot of good recommendations about what actually it means to do operational considerations. And you think it doesn't have good recommendations, then please also help to improve that document if you're interested in, the IETF forking off better operational recommendations. So that was a little bit marketing for operational considerations in general as a good thing to focus on. Okay, we also have a constraint grasp slide update. So the authors are going to talk about that. And we've got one non-working group item slot for which I'm pretty sure we'll have time. And I think there are also 2 people here that told me to ask for another slot at the end if we still have enough time. They didn't have, I think, time to prepare slides, but I think they'd like to bring up an active item under investigation to the ANIMA audience. And with that being said, we're through the chair slides, and our agenda says that ESCO is next up.
So then I think the slides should be loaded. See if this
Yep.
works.
Sure,
Seems like it's working, right?
Yeah. It's Bruski Discovery. I think they may not be operational.
I called it something like 02 maybe.
Yeah. Confirm your selection.
Should be 01. Yeah.
And then I hope.
Click.
Nope. Wait a second. Oh, I'm presenting from my thing. Where's the pass on? Where's the pass on slide control?
Go to the clicker and
Click.
Oh, there's a user called clicker if you have the user
Oh, yeah,
list
the
there.
user list. Yeah.
You see clicker on top. This one.
okay.
and then do something apparently. I'm not sure if. Yeah.
Pass
Okay.
light. Thank you. I was almost there. Okay.
Okay, let's see if this works. We'll click in a few seconds. So this is two drafts presented in one slideshow. Constraint Brewski is first, also known as ANIMA Constraint Voucher. And we are now at version 29 of the draft, which is already getting pretty impressive. And you can also spot the local, try to spot the local Montreal beer here on the slide. Too late. Okay. We just have a very short recap and goal of Constraint Brewski, because sometimes there are new people in the room and we may need to recap that. So this is an onboarding protocol for IoT devices. So that's the pledge there on the bottom left. It can use cBrewski to basically find neighboring nodes in a 6-LoWPAN mesh network, and then try to get onboarded there, and then via nodes, basically, it can get a certificate in the end or a network key after that. It can basically join the network. And this goes with co-op communication to the registrar, and then the registrar talks HTTPS to the Mazen server over the internet. So we typically assume there is an kind of a live onboarding where you get a voucher, including a nonce, and that's used by the pledge. So this was the recap. Now we have some updates since the last IETF. There is basically two new things added in the draft, new functionality, not very big things, but small things. So we actually now clarify that the pledge uses the link local address that it got from the discovery response message to contact the join proxy. So if it joins the network, it uses the services of a join proxy, and it basically, the question was, okay, how does it get the link local IP address of that join proxy? So now we clarify how that's done. There were actually two ways to do it now, and we clarify, okay, this is the way to do it. And the second feature is that there's now support for multiple registrars and also for multiple Brewski variants. So that's needed to be already prepared for future work that's coming up. So it's Brewski Discovery Draft that basically allows a network to have one registrar which supports, for example, 2 protocols or even 3. And you could also have multiple registrars there. So there are just 2 registrars with the same function or with different protocols even. And then the pledge basically needs to select between those. And that whole idea is not worked out in detail, but it's already supported there. So that's important to have basically the pledge already prepared for what might come in the future, so that it can at least not fail in that case. So we have some forward compatibility. And there were also editorial fixes. So this is mostly in the co-op message text display format, which used many different formats, and now it's more unified, actually. Okay, are there remaining open items? Yeah, just one, actually, which is a remaining decision here. This came up relatively recently through work in the core working group. So the question is, should we have support in the registrar for this new co-op option? So it's called URI path abref for abbreviation. So this is basically a new option, as you can see on the bottom here. In the old situation, in the co-op message, it needed to include quite some bytes to point to the path to use for Brewski. In this case, it's RV is a request voucher. So that was 21 bytes. And with the new option, you could compress that down to just 3 bytes, because it uses a new option, including registry of values. So it's intended to access well-known resources in a very efficient way. So this basically shortens the message. And that's actually useful because in some constraint networks, you also have a limit on message size. If you're using UDP, it can be limited to 1280 bytes MTU of IPv6. And then if you do things like joint proxy with relaying, that basically adds more overhead to the message. So everywhere where you can save, it's basically good, I think. So this could be a very useful addition. So we have a GitHub issue for that. And basically, we as the authors recommend to support this. It would be a must for the Cbrusky registrar, and the client can optionally use it, although it's recommended for the client. And, okay, we have Torles in the queue.
Yeah, just as a contributor there, I think Brewski has not that much traffic, right? So it's not the ideal protocol to really show off the benefit of this. But given how it was a trigger from an author that was trying to also help improve the fundamentals, and given how worst case this is just going to delay the constraint work itself by waiting for this as a normative reference, but nothing else. And this is kind of the reference application then for that, unless you have a better one, right? But if Brewski is the first kind of reference application for this, I'd also be happy to support that.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, we do expect in the core working group that this draft would kind of proceed quickly. That was basically expectation, and it was on purpose even simplified to achieve that. So to get out all the bells and whistles and make it as simple as possible. So it might be good to just await the core meeting this week to see if there were any words about this. I don't think it's actually on the agenda, but I can check with the people to see, yeah, what's the expectation for that. Yeah, the other thing was working group last call. I think this follows after the planned change. So this is just not for now to initiate or anything, but I think it can be done after this final issue is resolved. I don't think there are any more open issues that I know of, at least at the moment. Okay, Torles, you can get out of the queue, I think, or not?
Oh, yeah.
If you are still, or you're
Just
still
trying to
waiting.
take the notes, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I can also help with taking notes, but it's a bit hard to do that now.
Yeah.
Later on is okay. So then we move to the second part. That's basically the constraint join proxy draft, which is separate, but it works very nicely together with constraint Brewski. So we move to the same kind of introduction slide again. Now there are slightly more arrows on top. So this just highlights basically the role of the join proxy. So it's the JP that might be located in many of the IoT devices in the mesh network there. And the pledge uses link local communication to talk to the join proxy. And that entity can relay the data onto the registrar. And it can even be one of multiple registrars in principle. So as I noted before, there can be support for multiple registrars and also multiple protocols. So it basically join proxy who selects then the port and the IP address to forward to without knowing what's actually inside those messages. So what did we update since last time here? There's two new things or new functions. So one is that the scheme was renamed. So it doesn't really change anything in the functionality, but it's a noticeable change. So the scheme name does not have co-op S plus anymore in it. So it's just called JPY. Yeah, the reason for that is basically twofold. So one is that we have this protocol for relaying defined, the JPY protocol, which could in principle carry any protocol data. So it doesn't need to be co-op. So we realize that later on. So that's one reason to maybe not have co-op in the name necessarily. And the other one is that there is a new draft in core transport indication that basically aims to discourage any new co-op or co-op S plus something plus foo transport schemes. And that is because they are afraid, I think, that the amount of possible new schemes will explode, and that gives problems elsewhere, especially if you have co-op resources that are accessible through multiple schemes. Like you can have the same resource over UDP, over TCP, or co-op over SMS, co-op over Bluetooth or whatever. but it's all the same. So they want to have a different mechanism for transport indication, and then just use the co-op scheme. So that, yeah, was review feedback from the expert on basically this topic from core working group. So then we decided after a lot of discussion on the mailing list to let's just change that to JPY. There's also a small security requirement added. It's like a minor thing, but we basically say that any protocols that are carried in the JPY message must be resilient against header modifications of IP or UDP headers. So, and that's because basically the JPI message itself, as you can see on the picture, does not carry any IP headers or UDP headers. It just takes basically whatever is in the UDP payload and puts it there in a message. So that's in this case DTLS containing secured co-op inside, which means that during the relay process, an attacker or some middle box could just change these headers, which is actually intended for relaying, because we're changing basically these headers to get a link local packets relayed all the way to the registrar. So this is just an added requirement on whatever protocol you put inside the JPY. It must be resilient to that and not impact the security of that. And furthermore, there were editorial changes. So I won't go into more detail here on that. So are there any remaining issues? Well, it's the same one as I said before. Also for this draft, you could ask yourself, can we use the URI path abbrev option? And if we do, it might be good to have that mandatory supported. So what can be done with that? This is basically for joint proxy discovery. It can be used. So the example shows that you go from 29 bytes to encode your URI path and query for co-op discovery down to 13 bytes. So it basically can compress the well-known core very, very well, and then the query gets added to that. So in this case, there's a small size reduction in the discovery message. So I checked yesterday, so it's about 75 bytes to something like 59 bytes. Doesn't have a big big impact or difference on the mesh network side. Maybe it does if you have a device sitting there in the ceiling for many weeks that's sending thousands of discovery messages, then that could have some benefit. Yeah, it's basically multicast discovery, correct. So that doesn't mean for the radio, that doesn't mean make any difference if unicast or multicast, but it is the case that other devices are, of course, processing that.
So,
you have a question?
yeah.
Carlos?
So I think on the, maybe I was just misreading it, but on the prior slide, it sounded as if you were thinking of JPY potentially being useful beyond Brewski. If so, do you have anything specific in mind in the IETF or in IoT environments where that could be the case?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's anything specific, but this also came about because I also work for the thread mesh networking protocol, which uses a similar relay, which is not the one we define here in IETF, but it's a similar protocol. And that was designed from the start as a DTLS relay, and it was used for that. And now we found out accidentally that it's a very generic mechanism, so that we can also relay any other protocol. And that turns out to be very useful now after a couple of years, because now people want to use other onboarding protocols, and because the relay is already in place, you can reuse the existing relay mechanism that has been in products for years. You can use that for new onboarding protocols, basically, that go over the mesh. So they reuse the same relay, but put other packet formats in. And yeah, I think there are some talks about what these protocols are. There's not anything in ITF that I know. Yeah, it could be something which uses the SRP update format that was discussed. So SRP is a service registration protocol. So you can use it for announcing also like, hey, this is my service, and now you take it if you want it, or otherwise leave it. Michael.
Should we abandon what we have for what Thread's using?
Abandon this. Yeah, it's very thread specific, so I'm not sure if that's
Is it it's too
helps.
thread specific?
I think it's too thread specific. Yes.
Can we envision a
We get lost.
JPY 2.0 that does everybody? Or is this, I mean, just saying, if it's, as you said, it's deployed, it's out there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't see why anyone should want to use more code space to do the same thing twice. But
Yeah, I
I,
can imagine. Yeah.
I mean, to me, it sounds as if we just need to remove all the references to Brewski and just keep all the JPY specification in there, right?
no, that's not talking about the opposite. Can we stop doing what we're doing and use what Thread is doing?
I think you got the answer from him.
Yeah,
already.
so he said that, right? So, but so like, just like,
Yep.
is there a converged thing that would do everybody in the future? Is it just a conversation we should have?
Yeah, I didn't really consider that. Yeah, of course, the thread thing is already implemented in legacy devices, so that's not something you can
But
change. And
but
they
if
keep using it because it's there. And yeah,
but if people within Thread want to do other onboarding with that thing,
right.
that other onboarding, could it be Brewski? Could
Yeah.
we use it, is what I'm trying to get at. You're saying it's very thread specific. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the good news is, of course, that you can do the Brewski onboarding as well over that mechanism. So you don't use the exact relay mechanism that we specify here, but you do use cBrewski exactly as specified. So
Right.
Okay, that's
that's
fine. But
possible.
let's say if you wanted to do the thread enrollment and use JPY, what would be the issue?
I think there's a feature missing or something that thing. Is that document open?
Well, Thread has a specification that is not public, but you can by accepting a license, you can download it basically. And there
Okay.
are some people in IETF who refuse to accept that license. But yeah, that's how it is.
Okay, I just don't want to, like, I don't want to waste code space in it. That's all.
Yeah.
And I would prefer to be able to run more things in more places. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
But the good news is, well, at least you can do cBrewski on Thread using the thread mechanism. Yeah.
So this essentially winds up being for non-thread
Yeah.
15.4
This
users.
is like a reference, basically a reference for relaying if you don't have threads.
I mean, this also supports, well, so this is all about co-op, right? So, because we have the joint, we already have a joint proxy in Brewski for TCP, so that would be not the same at all anyway.
Yeah, this is a UDP based protocol. It doesn't need to be co-op actually. So JPI is just a new protocol not using co-op.
All right. Well, I think we should. I think we should. I would ask you. I would ask you to ask Thread to say, like, can we just take their thing and abandon our thing? Like, because I'm serious. Like, I mean, we've had this around for a long time because we needed it, but it's not something I think we're particularly. I mean, we don't want to work on it, but I mean, if there's something out there that's as good and already deployed, then
it's only that
Well, wait a second, but that's in the middle, the as good, right? What's the comparison?
I don't know.
Right,
Yet because
yes.
I haven't read the
So
doc.
is there stuff
According-
also?
According to IETF standards, what we have now is better because in the early beginnings, it looked more like the thread thing. So using co-op to relay. Now
Right.
we removed co-op actually here because we found it's better to not have co-op.
Well, yeah,
based.
we it was a layer we had no use, had no purpose, right? It was just
Right.
going to be a place to stuff exploits in or something.
Right.
Is their stuff also stateless?
Yeah, that's stateless. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So
This is both actually. You can choose.
Sorry.
This what we have here in IETF is basically you can choose stateful or stateless,
But
and
I'm talking about
thread
the
has
thread
stateless
proxy.
basically.
It's
Yeah,
only stateless.
yeah, only.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think we have a formal liaison with Thread. I think we just have you and Ted who code both, and
Right.
Stuart,
Yes.
right? But
Right.
maybe we can send a request formally through you, or whatever,
Okay, that's
Stuart,
maybe good to consider. Yeah.
consider. Would
Yeah.
you like to bring this here, or would you like to send us the document under liaison, criteria, or
Okay.
right?
That
Let's
could
just
be considered. Yeah. Then we can at
let's
least
consider
compare.
that at this last moment here, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's not clear to me if their stuff is also stateless, what the big difference would be, right? I mean, we're on UDP, we're right. I mean, what we're missing is even having a specification that's not specifically saying Brewski, right? We haven't extracted the JPY mechanism as something generic,
That's right. Yeah. So.
but I think they also don't have that, right?
Yeah, that's right. No.
And the question would be, is that even something considerable for them that a proxy would run for non-thread service? Probably not, right?
Yeah, no, because these nodes typically only have a thread radio for communication and nothing else. So you don't need to consider a non-thread radio transport.
No, it's not the radio transport. I mean, you're talking about the higher layers. This is on top of UDP. So the question is, do they want to keep a closed ecosystem of all proprietary standards up to that level, or would they be, willing to accept, open standards in there?
Sure. Yeah, I think open standards are being used actually and are welcomed also. Yeah, the problem might be more like, okay, if you have something and you depend on it, you can't change it anymore. So you have to keep that using that format until eternity if you want to be backwards compatible. So I think that's maybe more of a problem than, even though it's not the best or most efficient format. Yeah.
Yeah,
For
if
example,
there's
one.
a chance for us to understand their
Yeah.
their stuff better, then I think
Yeah.
it's easier to
That's
have
me.
continue the discussion. Otherwise, I think we're stuck.
Let's maybe start. Yeah, one thing that's, for example, a disadvantage of that thread mechanism for relaying is that TCP is not supported. So basically, the joint proxy opens a UDP port, and the pledge can only send UDP to there. So there's no TCP port.
Well,
So that's one.
I wasn't planning to repeat any of the details, but if you go to the discovery document and look at the problems that you're getting when you have the stateless mode and you're doing more complex discovery, right, of servers that are potentially, having differences in what they support, then there also is an argument to be made that the UDP stateful one may make, more complex networks easier, right? So the stateless stuff is not only beneficial, right? So it is very good if there's a lot of proxy load going through it, for which I think the registration protocols for Bootstrap aren't even. I mean, they only use that for Bootstrap, right? So they don't proxy anything.
Right. Yeah.
Anything other. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and then there's also a second issue here. So again, the URI path abrev here. Oh, this is I already said this. Let me think you said. Yeah, so this is basically what I mentioned, the size reduction. So it's not necessarily super helpful here. We have already small messages and you can make them a little bit smaller. But it's also not very costly to support that option maybe. This is another issue that came up in discussions. So we call it now me.arpa as an idea. So the idea is to have a special domain hostname defined for the purpose of using that in core link formats. So this is the discovery format we use. The idea is to replace their long and actually unused IPv6 address string by a fixed name. So you can make it shorter And there's no need to generate that string. And there's also no need to, or yeah, no reason to go and parse that string. So it would avoid some ambiguity about which address to use. And maybe an example would make this easier to see. So this is basically the old discovery payload format and the new proposed one, where me.arpa is being used. So this makes basically the payload shorter, and you remove the hexadecimal link local address there, which we actually advised not to use and not to look at and not to parse. Sorry?
Because it's wrong.
Why do you mean it's wrong?
Because you're doing this discovery potentially through a join proxy.
No, well, this is discovery of join proxy, so it's a link.
Oh, okay, I'm
pure
sorry.
link local.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So
Yeah.
the next step was the other part. Yeah, because
Yeah.
we would also use it for that, right?
Yeah, for the other part, you get, let's say, different things. So if you are, for example, join proxy discovering a registrar, then things work differently because you're already on the network.
Right.
And you do the discovery and you get back the address of the registrar, which is then very valuable information. You actually want to use it.
Right.
in
We
that
never
case.
do. Pledge never does a discovery through the join proxy to the registrar. We don't do that.
Well,
Okay.
that's possible, but that happens inside the secure DTLS tunnel, and that means you get different payload results. So there are no addresses in there. Their short format is used there, so you only get the resource name itself. So the
Right. We don't
scheme
we're not putting the schema on anyway.
scheme
Okay.
is and the others are kind of compressed away. Let's say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Sorry. Yeah. I'm just saying that sometimes you get an answer and you're like, you have to ignore it because it's the link local on the other side, but not in this case. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Thank you.
just because of the format specification, it needs an address there or a host name, basically something valid. Yeah, so that's why the link local address is there, because you can't just leave it out. Then it's an invalid URI at that point. And in the bottom one, we have a valid URI, so with some specific semantics of me.arpa. So Torles, you wanted to say something here?
Yeah, so I think the support for this to make going through a proxy easier is, I think, incomplete, right? The problem we have is that the proxy may also need to indicate a different port. And so
Yeah, if you have, the problem is if you go through proxies, I think that's also my next slide, goes into a little bit of detail for that. So that's the second point. If it's relayed by co-op proxy, so it's not in this use case, but in general, if you allow me.arpa in these discovery documents, then what happens if that thing gets relayed through a co-op proxy, which is a very common thing in co-op in general. Then basically you lose the semantics. So instead of the address, which would remain valid still through a proxy, if you use me.arpa, basically the semantics are changed, and then me means the proxy instead of the server, and then it could be a different semantic. So I think it's okay if the intention is that the client does all its access through the proxy, then it's no problem. Then it's a good,
I mean, it would
good
work,
thing.
right? So if you
You-
rewrite the CoreLF announcement with a new port and keep me.arpa, then it will work, right? But what you
I'm not sure if the proxies generally don't rewrite payloads, so they just pass them unchanged, basically. So that's at least. Well, there is, for example, if you have DTLS, then the proxy cannot access the co-op, so you cannot have a co-op proxy. So, so if you use DTLS, you can't have a co-op proxy in between. You can only have these, more lower layer proxies, like IP layer proxy, for example.
so
If you use Oscore security, that's basically that's a nice security that works end to end, but can still go via a co-op proxy that processes some of the co-op, but it cannot touch all of the co-op, so only a part.
Well, I guess in the case of the discovery in Brewski or in constraint Brewski, you might use TLS on the proxies to discover the registrars or multicast, but you would send out new multicast discovery correlate messages to the pledges. So in that case, you are recreating the discovery messages, and of course you can
Yep.
rewrite them.
So the joint proxy case has its own basically fresh discovery responses.
Right.
That's right, but it's based on the information that it learned itself from the network. So there's not, not really
So
a
I-
rewriting
right.
as such, but more like reconstructing messages based on the discovered information. So there it's so possible, and the joint proxy does pick its own ports, for example.
Yeah, so I'm not
Um,
sure if there is a case where you go through the proxy, but the discovery information would be available unchanged only.
Yeah, I don't think we have a use case where this goes wrong in Anima, but I think the issue is more like, okay, if you allow it in general for core link format, you suddenly have a new feature with new semantics, and you have to be careful of the meaning of that. So if you have an IP address, at least it goes through unchanged. And
Well,
so
but I mean, you need to discover and use a proxy anyhow, even in the normal core case. Forget about Brewski, right? So, and
proxies can also be, like say, sort of pre-coded. So like the client uses my nice hostname.com, and then DNS basically converts that to an address, and then you know where to go. So there's no discovery as such. There's only DNS lookup in co-op. So that's
well, in any case,
could be
I
the case.
think the cool thing about me.arpa would be that even if you can, you don't need to rewrite as long as just the IP address changes, but you still need to rewrite when the port number changes because of the proxy, and the rewrite would invalidate any possible signature on the announcement. So that's a little bit the issue that you would need to say if you're signing this stuff, then you can't sign the port number. You can only sign the rest.
Okay, yeah, there's lots of considerations related to that. Yeah, in general, in the co-op proxy world, there is not really an idea of rewriting, because the idea is the resource remains unchanged. It's just proxied. What we do with joint proxies and the rewriting is basically, a different, a different situation. So it's not co-op proxy in that sense.
Did you plan to bring this up in core?
Yeah, it can't be this week because it's a super packed agenda. And so it needs to be in an interim, I think, to get that feedback. Yeah, so the next steps are basically to decide on these two issues that I just mentioned here. And after that, I think it should be a working group last call. I think advisable because of the many text changes since the first working group last call. Okay, this concludes the presentation. So thank you.
Thank you. Any more question? Michael, you're done? Okay. Next one is me. I hope it's okay when I'm presenting from here. Let me see that the microphone is close by. So we left at 07 in 123, and I'd asked the co-chair to initiate an IANA early review, which Amanda Barber was doing. And so that was pretty much the work of this time. So there are no technical changes to the documents. It's all editorial, I think. May not be true about the update section when we'll get to that, but it's primarily big changes to the IANA tables and resulting the complete rewrite of the text explaining the table. So I hope it's a lot better. But there is no change in the data model or any of the technologies of the discovery. So it's all editorial. And when we get to an RFC, it will even fit into the 72 characters, which was a yeah. I was worried that I would have to do a lot of hacky stuff, and luckily not. So I was talking with Amanda on Tuesday, and so she quickly checked the new version and seems to be fine with it from the IANA perspective. And yes, as I mentioned, there is also new text on updates. So let's go to that high level. So this slide summarizes everything you uh, ever may need to know about IANA tables, but were intelligent enough not to ask until you actually, like me, ran into it. The IANA tables can be sorted by columns. So what we try to do, like nicely have things sequentially in order, is not appropriate in an IANA table because the order of rows is irrelevant, right? So, and ultimately, the tables are a database. So I've been trying to make them compact and easier to read by having in individual cells multiple items that are matched around columns. Like, what does a particular thing means for DNS SD? What does it mean for CoreLF? What does it mean for GRASP? And that is also something you can't do if you really want to have the data correctly in the database. So that needed to be separated into separate lines. Then there was the question of how to even put it into the registry tables. And so IANA is a little bit limited in what they're doing. Could have either been a separate IANA registry web page, or it would have to be a registry with sub-registries. So I was trying to steal whatever the best option is from another occurrence. So I also looked at the core IANA registry, and I picked the main registry with sub-registries. Only problem is one of the tables needed to be selected as the master table. So I just picked the least interesting and most stable one. So there is no logic to this. This is just, comes with the IANA territory. And then the original 3 tables were too complex, which also made them too wide, and they didn't follow the normal logic, which is you're typically registering one particular item, which is the first column, and then the rest are parameters of that item. So, so I ended up having to split the 3 tables into 5. So these are the tables now. So the main table is just very boringly the discovery mechanisms. And by having a separate table now, it's of course also a lot easier to, in the future, when the service discovery mechanism to replace all other service discovery mechanisms comes along, then it will have its own reference RFC to describe how that would work, right? So the sub-registry context. So context, we had context in before, Brewski, C Brewski, and pledge. And that also then defines as a parameter the variation type supported. And right now it's very boring because they're all the same, right? If we ever want to discover massa or anything else, the variation types might be different. Then we have, oops, that was killed in conversion to PDF. That was looking perfectly fine before. Sorry, it didn't look. So that's the service name subregistry. So here in the first column, you see, you see the service names. Of course, they look all kind of different depending on whether they are for CoreLF, DNS, SD, or GRASP. So that's explained in the explanation sections there. So anything for CoreLF, of course, is the RT equal, the value of the RT equal parameter. And then the transport parameters, so these are the ones that was all there already, but we're simply having to indicate that brewski.jp with HTTPS is for Brewski, and then brewski.jp, and it's not here on the slide, but Yeah, it is, right? With CoAP S is for constraint Brewski, so it's totally different references. And then, of course, also later different references for the actual variation, right? So that's how these things come together so that we can reuse the same service name with different transports. And then the subregistry for the variation type choices, I'm not sure if we actually changed anything in them here. So RM, PRM, CMSJ, Jose, all those things. I think there were a few bugs in the prior version as well, which are now also fixed. So that is just bringing together the long list of the different variations that we have. And of course, the variations differ based on the transport. So obviously something like EST in C Brewski is different from EST in Brewski. So this table also allows to capture this. So all these tables are primarily, as the database to find the references to where particular things are actually specified and what can be used. And then the last table, the variations, is the only one that the coder is actually interested in, right? So the variation string are the strings that are actually put into the discovery to indicate the variations. And of course, they're constructed from the variations in the third column, and here you have the specifications, which then talks about them. And so now the document has only the variation strings in there that we actually know work and that have specifications. I've also removed the potential future ones, just to keep it more concise and focus on what we know will work and can be used. So then we also went through the whole process with CoreLF and what it means if we want to have new route target in core that start with Brewski, like Brewski.jp, Brewski.rjp, and so on. And so it turns out that the table that basically says, oh, core and anything else, IETF review and so on. So this is not a registry table. This is a registry procedure table, and that's part of the specification. And so that means that this update request is actually an update for 5860 for the CoreLF specification. So, and I'm coming to that. So, but this is basically the table, the requirement. This was added, and then there's the service name registry. And yeah, so what I forgot last time is that the service name registry for DNS SD, that now it updates it not only for TCP but also for UDP for use with cBrewski, right? And so that discovery of cBrewski with the same service names as we're using in Brewski, because they're using UDP instead of TCP, we can reuse the same service names. And then there's also the column with the text keys that are valid, and that's pointing to this document because the text keys are exactly the service variations. So the other improvements in the text, so as I said, the new section describing the restructured registry data model, and then the section 4, and this is where I'll hope to wake up the authors of the other Brewski drafts, because this is doing one section that says it's updating Brewski AE, RFC 9733, and it's explaining, kind of saying here, add the following text to Brewski AE, the section on how you do discovery with the other mechanisms that are described here. So this is additional text, and is going to be then considered to be an update to Brewski AE. Likewise, section 4.2, update to Brewski PRM, describes how to apply the discovery to Brewski PRM. Right, and specifically in that case, it would say, in the Brewski AE, it would say you should now do the, if you're supporting this discovery mechanisms, you should choose the Brewski service name instead of the Brewski Reg CMP service name, right? So that was the one-off we did to get RFC 9733 out quickly without depending on this one. And now basically when this comes out as an RFC, it basically says you should do Brewski registrar as the service name and then the text variation for the CMP, right? So that would exactly be what I would love to have double and triple checked with the other Brewski draft authors. And then as I mentioned, the 6690, and maybe I'm missing here one section also for the constraint to do exactly the same type of update for the constraint one. Now that I'm thinking of it, so the update to core left, that was just this registry instructions table, and I think I should send a note about this update to core that they know about it. The 6690 update to core working group. We discussed it, but of course the text and the actual stuff is happening now. I'm not sure we can do any official review asked to the working group, but I'll obviously going to ping explicitly also the chairs so that if they start to complain, oh, this we own this as a different working group, you need to do a different process, then I'll figure it out quickly. Okay. So next steps, still happy for more reviews. So I'll ping especially because of the update sections. I'll hope to get 2 more outside reviews, one from a DNS SD expert, one from another ANIMA contributor. I was just doing that, and hopefully we can get to a working group last call with that remaining feedback collected in beginning of December. Let's go.
Hello, Skodijk. Yeah, I have a general comment that what we have is kind of defining a whole framework for all possible situations. And I noticed there are now lots of IANA tables and registries, and so it's getting really complex now. And you said actually, well, what the implementer is looking for might be just this string, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like if I have a pledge, I know it's implemented for this particular string, so it will look for maybe that string only, because that's the only variation that it supports. So it's something very complex to achieve something that's for the implementer relatively simple, I think. Also for the joint proxies, they just relay the strings so that the pledge can choose. Now thoughts, how do we handle this? Because for a typical implementer, the document would be way too complex and long to parse and go through and read. So I'm not sure how to deal with that. So one option is to just simplify things a lot. So you get just a simple registration for, okay, I have a string and it means this protocol. And if you make a variation, then you would just need to register another string to describe that variation, even if it's only a minor variation. That's one idea. Or the other idea is, well, we just have this big document like what we do now. It's more or less for us, the experts, to keep track of things, to do the registrations for new protocols, but implementers don't have to look at that. So do we need maybe a separate document then for like an implementer who just wants to simply do the discovery, find the right service, and start using it without needing to know about like 20 different IANA tables? So this is a bit my worry about the current document. So like, could we split it maybe to help that process of getting that eventually adopted?
So thanks. Yeah, so definitely, right? So I think whoever implements a proxy will need to understand a lot, right? Because you'll get registrars supporting different variations, and you need to do the right thing to basically then have pledges that connect to the proxy be passed on to the right registrar, right? So they need to understand all
Well,
that.
not all, I think, because what the joint proxy could do is normally it would send out a discovery for a specific, let's say for a specific service, and it might get multiple Brewski variations in the response to a single discovery query, and then it needs to offer those variations on different ports.
Yes.
So that could still be relatively simple, and maybe this implementer of the proxy doesn't have to know exactly the IANA details of how all these strings came into life.
Yeah. So okay. So all I was just starting off. What is the complexity for implementers, right? So the worst complexity, I think, is for implementers of proxies, right? If we're just talking about implementers of registrars and pledges, I completely agree. It is very simple, and I was thinking of maybe then try to figure out how we can have maybe a new section to summarize this, right? So the implementers considerations, right? Because a lot of this is back-end process to, actually continue to make it simple to implement, right? Because you don't have to start re-specifying things that have already been specified, like all the different variations we already have, right? You just need to kind of validate once that it works. If you do a different variation, and if you bring a new one in, there is a very well-established process, right? So definitely right now, the document doesn't make a good marketing pitch specifically to the implementers that, yes, there's a lot of complexity here, but unless you are also an author needing to write something new, it's very simple to you. You just go to the experts of the registry and they'll tell you what to do.
Okay, yeah, I agree actually that if somebody makes a new variation, wants to implement it, test it, based on the ingredients that are there, then they need to understand that more complex story. But if you're just an implementer of a proxy using a variation that somebody else already registered and tested, then then you don't need to understand all of that.
The other thing that I was boggling with would be to make the variation string table the main table, and the rest is the bureaucracy subsections, right? So that's
something like that. Yeah.
So that would be turning around, right? So right now it's the logical thing for readers who want to understand everything. You start with the discovery, go through all the steps, and finally you get at the registration strings. And if we turn it around, you put the result on top and say you don't need to read the rest if you're just an implementer. So that would be
Okay, but I can help thinking about that. Of course, I didn't look at it in much detail yet, but I think we might need to do something like that.
It's the same content, right? It's just more, less columns,
more
clearer,
separated, so at least that people are not kind of obliged to go through all those details if they just need to find a string, for example, or Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Who's next? What does our agenda say? All right, so then we've got 8366 bis. I think Michael is up. 2, 3. Give me a second. Confirm your selection. Find Mr. Clicker. Where are you, Mr. Clicker? Slide clicker. Slide control. Yes. And here you go.
Okay, thank you. Oh, bit of a head rush standing up there. Hi, so I think this is in its last gasp. First adopted in 22. And we went through so many different iterations, and there are slides and talks in previous meetings that you can go see. So just repeat this slide a little bit. And go back and see if there's any questions about why and where we went. And I haven't bored you to death already on that, then you can ask questions. So thank you for the extensive review, ESCO. I was optimistic when I made these slides that I would post 17 today, but I have not, but I will. And I really just need to make sure that I have addressed all of your comments. I know that I got 2/3 of the way through them in 16, and I think I finished them, but I have to make sure that I've gotten all of them. There was no other significant working group last call review, but there's been other ones in the past. One of the major issues was, and I talked about this last time and the time before, was that we were not getting SIDS allocated for the Yang pieces properly. This is the core pieces. The tool is not doing the right thing, and I improvised by doing it manually. It got worse before it got better, in that I managed to break it so that it would allocate no addresses at all. And then that pointed to the fact that I was no longer using the right piece of code. Anyway, Karsten and I have a plan. There is issues, Mr. Area Director, that you should be aware of for IANA specifically. So Karsten has a plan that he thinks we should be able to produce SIDS for all the existing Yang modules that exist. He had some notion that we would do this week, but I don't know if he succeeded. He may have, but the short of it is that if IANA comes back to do this and runs into bugs like I have just run into, it's not clear who's going to help them. So just to be aware that this is an issue, and that into tools, and I was trying at one point to get Eric Vinca to take that into consideration in the Yang catalog work and all that stuff. Just, it's something ongoing that is going to be an issue. So we will have a version of Yang that will do the right things. It just might not be the official one yet. So that's really about it. And I need to post that document. I think you guys need to look at a diff. I think it'll be all good. And then it's his turn. Mahesh.
Yeah, so Mahesh, quick comment on the tooling part of it. A couple of people who probably should be able to help, Joe Clark being one of them. But if you bring it to NetMod, you might just get some help.
It's not a standards activity issue. It's a support question that
It is.
if when IANA runs into, oh, this does not work, who can they actually ask that has a day job mandate to actually answer them? And that's the problem, is that while Karsten and I can answer questions, we can't. Many times we getting our code upstreamed is a challenge. So I just want to raise that as a concern going forward. We are going to be the first document that has a SID allocation that comes with it.
Okay.
Okay.
So just
At least
remind
I
me,
think
who
we
are the designated
be.
experts?
Pardon me?
Who are is there as far as the registry is concerned, is there a DE for the allocation? And is the check just to make sure that the SID is correctly allocated and that the tool is flagging it as an error, in which case, yes, we do need to go and fix the tool.
Yeah, so that's the concern I have, that what you just said was that for the Uber experts, they'll fix it themselves. For IANA and anyone else coming forward, it may be difficult for them to recognize that this is not working as intended. Okay.
Right. The reason I asked about the DE is usually IANA, when they do run into a problem like this, the first point of contact is the DE.
So I have a suspicion that the DE for SID allocations, if there is one, is some subset of Andy, Karsten, and I, but I have to double check that.
Okay.
And what I'm trying to say is that we may not be competent or timely in being able to do, specifically if we have to debug the code, if we run into another issue. And there are some issues, and there are some things that I fixed in less desirable ways that from a code-wide point of view. So all I'm saying, I just want to raise that flag going up that we are the first one's going to go through this process, and we'll probably be fine. but the third or fourth draft that goes through it will probably not, because the early adopters are also the coders, so we'll fix it ourselves. But going forward, we don't know if we're going to be able to fix everyone's problem, that way.
Okay, thanks for the heads up. I'll recognize it, and then let's discuss separately how to address
Sure.
the tools.
But can I say in notes something like there may need to be discussion how the tools teams take.
So I have not removed the text in this document which says that the SID numbers in the document are normative, and the ones that you might find in the SID file are still uncertain. Like yeah.
All right.
Right, but that's a very indirect response, right? So I think the goal of the process is to make the SID file allocations the only source of truth and to be correct. And that seems to be a tools problem, because these tools are not necessarily at the stage where they can officially be used. Yes? No?
Right. So recognize that there are two steps. One is the actual allocation, and I just want to make sure from an INA/RFC editor's perspective, there is somebody who's making sure that the allocation is correct.
So
Once that is done,
getting your block of 50 SIDs is an IANA action that they can do just fine. There
Right.
should be no issue at all with that.
okay.
Allocating those SIDs to the leaf things programmatically is where the problem is. Okay.
happening. Okay. And that is a tools issue, as you clearly identify.
And that's where I've struggled for the last 6 months, and that's why I'm not finished 17, is because I struggled again with it 2 weeks ago, just before the draft deadline, and fixed
So-
the bug at 7:30 on Monday night, right?
So I'm giving you a couple of names.
Yep,
Maybe they'll
I
be
know.
able to help.
Yeah, so I know them, and we've talked about that, and yeah.
Wait a second. Isn't it fair to say that we may do it as a one-off, and we're in ANIMA may be happy, but the larger thing is there is going to be a new tool to be used by, I'm not quite sure who would do it in the future, to allocate these leaf SIDs to generate SID files. Is there actually anybody in the IETF doing that, or is everybody supposed to autonomically be able to do that as a developer from the Yang files?
Yes to all of the above.
Okay, who in the IETF would do it in the future?
So as I said, so there's an attempt to produce SID files for all the historic RFCs that have Yang modules, so that we can
what would
reference
happen
them.
with these SID files? Are they published?
They will go out up to IANA to be put into their
Okay.
Yang database associated thing, right?
No, is it a registry? Is it
It's not exactly a registry, but effectively it is.
So do we do not have this yet?
It exists. 9254 or something created it. And there was a long back and forth with IANA to make sure that they actually understood that this was a new thing that they were going to have to maintain. And they seemed, actually, I felt like they may not have understood the question as well as they should, because they seemed unusually positive about it. And I thought they should be more pessimistic, right?
So these are going to be the normative SID files. IANA produces them. They're going to use specific tools to use them, and these tools may be broken.
That is the good summary. Yes, that is the good summary. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
but that basically means that if IANA already has the instructions to do this, then we should bring whoever wants to take responsibility in
No,
IANA.
sorry, one clarification. I don't think so. The allocation of the SID is the problem. It's the checking using Piang or any tool is where the problem is, as I understand it.
So just to clarify, you get a block of SIDs from IANA through some things, and there's
Somewhere,
another
yeah.
proposal to get it through a pen.
That process
whatever.
is fine.
That process is fine. Okay. So now you have a block, and now you want to mechanically allocate them to your Yang file. You can do it manually, as
Right.
I have wound
Been
up doing, but we would rather it was managed that way. And that's the step that doesn't
Currently
always
broke.
work.
Yeah.
Right.
But it seems as if at a point in time when a new Yang file comes out in IANA, somebody will sit there, press return on a tool that ingests the Yang RFC to produce the SID file, and that thing will do something wrong. And so at that point in time, it means that whatever tool is being used by IANA needs to be supported by the tools team.
That was my point. That was my point. And it was not, and it's not in the tools team mandate right now. It might have it might have fit into the Yang catalog mandate, but that mandate is over.
Right.
And so it's currently in a
Exactly
gap
what
and a-
Michael said
yeah.
is that the tools team doesn't maintain Yang. So there
Not
is
yet, but if we already have an RFC with instructions to IANA that they need to generate these SID files.
See, that's the thing. I
Okay.
think generating the SID file is separate from including it in the Yang file and using it.
In an
Yes.
ideal world, it'll happen in the working group prior to the working group last call.
Right.
And so it will actually be the working group members that will be facing this problem. However, there are some other scenarios, such as Yang files backed by IANA registries, where IANA actually turns the crank themselves. And so they could run into that. And then we have to do with the backlog of Yang modules
Okay.
that are there. And IANA may become involved in that or might not. I mean, I think the goal from the people that are doing this is to do the work for IANA so that we can move on. But anyway, I just wanted to raise that. Didn't want to have such a long debate about it, but that was the big problem, keeping it from, going forward. Is like, I don't want to break this, and I broke it worse. And
So
then I
what's the
fixed
next
it.
steps?
Next steps, I have to confirm that I've processed all of ESCO's comments. I'm pretty sure there
No,
are
on
some
this-
that
on-
I've not.
On this particular point, on the tools thing, what's the next step you want to take?
I hope that Mahesh will bring it up at some appropriate place, and that someone will either acknowledge that this is an issue, but we haven't resolved it, but somebody has ownership of it. That would be the ideal. If someone says, okay, I have ownership of this, whether it's an IANA person, a tools person, an IESG person, I don't know, but someone needs to own this, even if they don't solve the problem.
It'll probably be IANA bringing up the issue. I doubt whether they will own it.
Okay.
They are not the tools team.
Yeah.
ISG is not a tools team, so they won't own it. Yang, by the way, or any other tool that we decide to develop is currently outside the scope. So to answer your question, Tolis, currently there is no holder for this tool that Michael is asking for, but it's certainly something we'll have to bring up. I'll have to probably bring up. And
So
see.
it sounds a little bit like it would be good to understand RFC 9254, if that's the right number. If that basically, is forcing the working group itself to create the normative SID file and simply push it to IANA, right? Because then it's responsibility of the working groups. The whole IETF bureaucracy is a little bit out of the picture. Maybe somebody needs to review. I mean, but I don't know
Yeah.
the process of that RFC. That's what I suppose we're supposed to follow, right?
So I think we've killed this. Let's stop. Yeah,
Okay.
we've killed this. ESCO.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, we killed the discussion. I just want to add there that it seems like a good idea to have an automated tool and not let all the working groups make SID files for themselves, because half of them won't even know what SIDs are and don't care about constraint stuff. So it's going to be risky to not do it automatically. Anyway, my real comment here was on the draft. So if you publish a new version, I think I will just do a PR on that, submit a PR. So for some final things, which I'm sure I will find. So then we can move on quickly.
Okay, I would
So-
love if you could do that. I will
Yeah.
publish 17 as quickly as I can, but
Yeah.
I would be happy to publish 18 tomorrow or whatever, or
Yep.
Anyway, but I just want to put the stake in the ground.
And
Yeah.
would that be generated sits with the working tool then? That's what you expect?
I have a working tool.
Okay,
I
that's
have a
good.
pull request with the working tool.
Okay.
It includes a fix, which is probably wrong, but is pragmatic.
Works. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
As long as it works for us, that's okay.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
wait,
thank you.
wait. So this is all wonderful discussion, but finally, am I the working group chair waking up that I need to create a SID file and send it to IANA, or what's the process?
That is a long conversation which we've had in the core working group when we did the SID stuff.
So we'll
and
just take it offline, but
and
we're-
just
right.
yeah.
but
So
please,
yeah.
I mean,
it's
I'm happy to
it's
help, but I need to know
we had a
what-
long in that. It's not 9254, but whatever the number was in core. There's a long conversation about IANA considerations and 3 different categories of cluefulness of the creators. And
Let's move on.
yeah, move on. Yeah. Okay, and that's it. Any other
Keeping the
questions?
loop.
Yeah, I just had, there was one more slide for fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Am I next as well?
I think so. Wait a second, I need to do minus there, and yes here, and minus there. and- Or- wait a second, where's number? It must be on
Considerations.
number 4. Why is number 4 blanked out? Oh, there it is. Yeah, without the number. Okay. And Mr. Clicker. Yes. I was just trying to count the number of clicks to change. I think it was 12.
No, the URLs on the beginning here are wrong. Sorry about that. At least I took the correct date. Okay, so history of this document. This is about the considerations document. So late in the process for 8994 and 8995, there's a bunch of things that like I'm implementing code. And I'm like, okay, I've got some concerns here and I wasn't sure where to put them. And we started this document in 2019, 2020. And I just dumped things in there. A bunch of some of those things, like for instance, about which some of the pinning and the vouchers and some of that stuff, some of that actually managed to get back into 8995 before it while it was waiting in the RFC editor queue for something else. So some of that actually advice went forward and some of it didn't. The other part is that a whole bunch of the stuff about the taxonomy of how are we going to talk about any of this stuff wound up going through sec dispatch and wound up at the IRTF and the T2TRG. I'm a bit frustrated because we keep it's hurry up and wait. It seems like we're about to publish the document and then we're not, and then I never know if I'm waiting for them or them waiting for me. But it's sitting there. It has a bunch of taxonomy. If you haven't read it, I would urge you to do that. One of the things Sec Dispatch told me was go talk to other people, and I went and did this presentation for like a dozen, entities, and I got very little feedback, but also no one disagreed. So that's good. I wanted to, so in the next slide or two, I have some icons and other stuff, and I actually just wanted to remind the working group that I did create this website called bruska.org, 89954.org, 8995.org. It's all the same website. Any resemblance to cbor.o is entirely intentional. And the idea is that you can just put whatever links or whatever information, presentations you've done, whatever on GRASP, ACP, Brewski, you just put it there, whatever languages and things like that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. Did not get hosted at GitHub because there was no IPv6 there at a time. But I think that's changed if someone actually wants to fix that. Oh, there's no DNSSEC either. So critical thing is that the manufacturer has to maintain a private PKI. So this document is about prescriptive advice on how the private parts are kept by the manufacturer and, in the factory. So you have to stamp out these IDEV IDs. We need them in our devices to make things work. To do that, you need a PKI and you need to have some information about doing things. So one of the things with advice in here, using the terminology, is that a 2-level PKI is suggested with a root CA in an HSM and a subordinate CA that is in your factory that you could even destroy every day if you wanted and start a new one. That would be completely reasonable. And then the IDEV ID is the end entity certificate. And it's a 2-level PKI because there's 2 CAs, and the other documents explains why we count from 1 and not from 0. Because that's really the only debate. Okay, so that's part of it. And then the other side of this is, so that's there. So the advice for doing the IDEV IDs. And then we have over in the registry document, we have the same similar advice for what kind of a PKI is appropriate for the operator. So in a home network, I'm going to suggest a level 1 PKI, 1 CA living in the home router with no HSM and, not a lot of necessary security, but also it's simple and the threat is low. Okay. And so then there's advice for home, small and large operators, different levels of PKI and different amounts of security that you might want to do. Finally, there's some other advice in the registry document about pinning and how do you do that? How do you do the mutual TLS if you're going to do mutual TLS between the registrar and the MASA? And also, which key do you ask the MASA to produce a voucher for that's going to pin it? And there's some of this discussion wound up back in 8995 and in Brewski, we also have some advice. But there's some operational type of things there. So let me just get that. So there's also then the advice you need to have a key that you're going to sign your vouchers for, and you have to have a trust anchor. And that could be the same PKI as you do for your IDEV ID, rooted the same thing, but probably with a different subordinate CA. It could be a different one. And then you could also have the question of the mix of, for instance, if I have 6 products, I could sign them. I could have one hierarchy of PKI for all my products, signing IDEV ID. I could have different anchors for each product. I could have different subordinate CAs for each product. There's a lot of different variations of doing this. And fundamentally, it doesn't matter to the operator how you do it, except that they have to be aware, what's going on. And they have different trade-offs. So this is really about, helping the manufacturer realize that this is not so complicated and they don't have to invent things, but these are their choices. And what are the trade-offs for this? So specifically, one of the things I realized is that if you built a horizontally scalable registrar, and by what I mean is that as you got more devices that we're trying to onboard or renew, you would add instances of your registrar in a very web-like frame way, which basically means you add CPUs and containers or something behind potentially behind some kind of a concentrator. But actually, in some sense, you don't need to use the concentrator because you actually could have advertised through discovery multiple registrars and let, balancing happening elsewhere. There's some trade-offs there, and this document tries to deal with this. But one of the critical things is that it turns out that if you start with the concept that I have a single framework that's doing everything, talking to the devices below, but also talking to the MASA above, that it's possible to get into a scenario where you've said, oh, but I'm going to use the same end entity certificate and the same private key among both. And then you start replicating, scaling horizontally, and then you decide, oh, wait a minute, should I be copying that private key to every system, or should I be doing something else? Because I could have multiple end entity certificates that get pinned, and I could multiple things. And so one of the, for instance, instances is this bottom pledge interface. Well, if it's going to sign the voucher request, which we say you're supposed to do, then it could use the key that it has at the bottom, but then it needs to put the voucher request into the database because the top piece, which may be essentially a kind of air gap, is the one that's going to talk to the internet. So it has to pull the voucher request out of a database because it doesn't have the private key. or you could locate the private key on the top. These are alternatives, but you have to think about what you're doing because it affects which keys you expect to sign and which keys you expect to have pinned. So this is a diagram. Maybe this doesn't fit your model. That's partly of the discussion. What is it about this, and does any of this have an effect on the protocol? And so what I said when I originally wrote this, I realized, oh, this did have an effect, and we fixed much of the text for that. So it's all non-normative advice right now, and that's, I think, how it needs to stay. It needs to be operational considerations for that. Okay, so we've talked about, we've adopted these two documents. We talked about merging them. Yeah, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so I already put a note in for myself that I need to check in how much these things do include the suggestions already in 8994, because one of the scaling things that we've seen that's required in a lot of industrial environments is that you may lose connectivity to an external CA, right? So one of the core things is actually to have sub CAs. So one of the things we actually learned in deployment is you have big places like repair for maintenance plans for all the equipment, like your trains or something, and the internet doesn't work, so you need a CA locally there. So you need to set up a sub CA that you can have
that is local.
That is local, right? So
yeah.
and so I think and those things are in 8994. So I need to figure out how I can make sure that those options are referenced at least into 8994 where they're already described.
Yeah, and actually this fits in well to the conversation here. So on the left is the registrar considerations, and so there was this 1.2 reference network and diagrams, and I was much more ambitious when I made that diagram, thinking that there were things, and it talks about multiple locations and continents and other stuff like this, that your NOC might have partitions and other issues like that, as I think you're getting at. Actually, I didn't deal with that very well. I made the reference diagram so that I could talk about it, but then I actually never got to actually talking about it because I didn't yet know what to say, or there were other things that were more important. So that's part of it. And I said there's recommendations for tier 1 ISP networks, enterprise networks, home networks for that. Are they correct? I would like your opinions. We probably need to talk to other people. We probably need, it would be great if there was some, additional discussion with other ecosystems of things. These are the table of contents. We can, discuss how we're going to merge them if we want to merge them. On the right-hand side, you see operational consideration for manufacturer authorized signing authority. And, this is a discussion I said earlier, right? You can have a multi-product MASA. You can have a one MASA per product. There's a bunch of different ways of skinning this, and they come with trade-offs as to, how many really expensive HSMs you have to buy versus how easily you can scale. If your light bulb product takes off and you're doing billions of requests per year, but your vacuum cleaner product does not, then it might be better if they were split because you could scale one without the other. On the other hand, you might prefer to mix them together with the same MASA because then you can deal with them as a single scalable thing that, one is up and one is down or whatever. There's different ways of doing this, but you have to think about what you're doing because you have to put the trust anchors in. And so there are some options where, you would put you would build a PKI, you put a trust anchor that's a higher level, but now you have to pass all the chain through the process as well. So there's a back and forth, and these are trade-offs. And this is where I, wanted to really, get a lot more feedback, a lot more advice, and ideally, we wouldn't necessarily go very fast with this document because we would want real operator kind of feedback, PKI operator, manufacturer operator. So, the word escrow should have an R in there. There you go. And business continuity. So this is what it contains. If we're going to merge it, we need to think about whether there's a more cognizant table of contents that goes correctly, or maybe the answer is two 20-page documents is better than one 60-page document.
Or not, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. We're running a little bit.
Yeah, I'm done. That was it.
Thank you very much.
That's a big word. I don't remember making it so big. Okay.
Okay, let's see if we have. Is Longway there? Yep. Oh, do you want to
Yeah,
share this?
hi, Carlos.
Do you-
Uh, can you give me the slide? I have all. Okay, I see. Uh, Hi everyone. I'm Longwei Zhu from BUPT. I will introduce the current situation of Seagrasp. Uh, the Seagrasp is a lightweight version of Grasp designed for chemistry devices and adopted by ANIMA in July. Uh, Here is a summary of what we were done and what's ahead. We will complete the core mechanism refactoring. First, we define C graph as an application over co-app and still retain the session ID as 32 bits. Second, in terms of the draft writing, we will clarify the application scenarios and resolve the stable encoding issues, and the newest draft version will be submitted later. And now we are working on the multicast relay and preparing a POC and open source prototype. In terms of seagrass target scenery, we think the seagrass targets C1 or C2 class devices defined in RFC 7228. Those with only co-app support. These devices cannot use TCP-based grasp, but still need self-management uh, capabilities in IoT. Uh, and we found a real-world use case, the industrial device management at the edge. For example, in a factory, it often has the C2 class embedded controller managing machines via co-app. This controller can use seagrass discovery and synchronization to advertise capabilities, align firmware states, and synchronize parameters without a central server. This enables lightweight, scalable device management and avoids the complexity of TCP sessions or centralized control infrastructure. Uh, Now the C graph is defined as an application service over co-app. It retains grasp semantics and runs over co-app lightweight transport with built-in reliability and multicast support. And it maps the grasp mechanism into co-app request or response patterns. The discovery and the finding has been mapped into non-conformable co-app multicast, like the fetch or post method with no response option. Then the negotiation and synchronization has been mapped into a, se- a series of conformable co-app posts exchanges, and all the session use the a consistent token and session ID for correlation. Uh, Looking forward, we have three major items. The first one is the multicast relay. We will enhance the relay logic and reuse the co-op group communication. The second is the POC validation. We are planning uh, experiments to evaluate the message exchanges reliability in a constrained environment. The last one is uh, the open source implementation. We aim to release a public prototype in next meeting for the interoperability testing. Uh, that's all my that's all about the seagrass. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you very much. What do you think about the timeline going forward? When do you think you'll have an update on the draft? And do you think you'd have for IETF 125 something to show at a hackathon?
We are planning to uh, show the prototype in the IETF one 100 124, and the draft we will submit it as soon as possible.
Let's go.
So hi, just a quick comment. So I learned also this week about there is an RFC defining that you can add an implementations status section to the to drafts to track basically the status of the code and the experiments and everything related to that. So that could be an idea here. I'll just drop the link in the chat. It might be useful to add that here to keep track of the implementation work as well. But that's just an idea. Thanks.
Yeah, let's put that in the notes. Okay. There are no more questions here. I think I'll remove ESCO. Then I think we can go on to number 6. I think that's also remote. Let me quickly turn over. Wait a second. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I am Jianwei Mao from Huawei, and I want to share this work with you. The communication considerations for AI agent in the network devices. We can have a glance to the I can see the next page. Okay. We can have a glance at AI agent. It is a new kind of software that can receive requests in natural language format from users and get some guidance from large language model to deal with a task and follow the guide to complete the task. So we can deploy AI agent to in the network device to make it easier for operation, troubleshooting, and autonomy. Consider this scenario. It will make it easy for troubleshooting. The user, the network administrator, will describe the problem in natural language and type it in the terminal window. Tell me why BGP peer is down, and the router will pass or understand the words by language model and makes a plan to troubleshoot the problem, and then checks local status and configurations, including interface states and active entries of routing table and configurations of routing protocols. And finally, the router will summarize the root cause and print it in the terminal for the user and it will say the interface GE0310 is down, or no IGP route to the peer address. Or in some case, it will say local states and configs look good, but I don't know why. Because there is a limit. Because the AI agent runs within one device, it knows nothing about other routers. If some problems caused by config mismatching, that cannot be handled. And if some problems caused by remote wrong states, that cannot be handled too. So we can see AI agent in different network devices need to communicate and cooperate with each other. The next slide. Okay. So we can see the cross-device communication can make this thing stronger. When the user say, tell me why BGP peer is down, the router 1 will find you need to check the configs in the router 2, and it will talk to router 2 via some kind of agent communication protocol. And the router 2 will reply specified status or configurations about the BGP peer. So the router 1 will analyze the configurations of itself and the router 2 and find the root cause. In this case, it is the configs of AS number mismatch. Finally, the router will summarize the root cause and print it for the user. In this case, the config mismatch on peer 2, and locally the peer type is IBGP with AS number 65001, but peer's AS number is 65010. And furthermore, the router 1 can require router 2 to fix the wrong configurations, so we can achieve fault self-recovery for better autonomy. So we propose a recent work, the cross-device communication framework for AI agent in network devices. In this work, the agent on network devices are categorized into 3 types. The first is communication agent. It will act as an entry and is mainly responsible for talking with other agents in other devices or external systems. The next one is worker agent. It is responsible for doing subtasks of a specific area, such as troubleshooting, measurement, or traffic optimization. And they can be integrated together in some implementations. For the communication agent in detail, it acts as an entry. It receives requests and sends responses from or to other agents in other devices or external systems, and it will aggregate the capabilities of all local worker agents and generate an overall capability of a local device and announce it. Finally, it will dispatch tasks to local worker agents and will manage life cycles of asynchronous tasks or local or long-term tasks. So we can see the AI agent in network devices are similar to the autonomic service agents, and it can be treated as an implementation of ASA, and the AI agent in different devices can have varying functions. So for the interactions of the AI agent in network devices, the communication agent on each device have a peer relationship with each other. For a single request response, they act as a client and server. The client agent will discover all capabilities of the agents in the targeted device and construct task requirements into request messages and send to server via a kind of agent communication protocol. And for the asynchronous tasks, it will record the task ID in the response message returned by the server agent and retrieve the task result later by the task ID. And for the server agent, it will aggregate and construct an overall capability report for itself. And you will send capability negotiation and responses messages to client. And for the short-term tasks, it will send the result directly. And for the long-term tasks, you need to generate and reply a task ID to client and manage the life cycle of the tasks. Wait for a client to take away the result or notify the client the task is completed. The next slide. So we need a kind of agent communication protocol. So we may choose the existing protocol, such as A2A, MCP, or the GRASP, and may add some extension to them. So the agent communication protocol, there are some requirements. You need to support capability discovery and negotiation, and task assignment and result collection, and authentication and secure transmission. Moreover, the protocol should support synchronous request response interaction and streaming interaction for better experience in some man-machine interaction scenarios. And it should support asynchronous calling. That means sending tasks and retrieving result by the task ID. And it should support bidirectional interaction for the scenarios where server agent asks for more information from the client agent in the reversed direction. And finally, it should support exchange structured or semi-structured messages for better performance in network devices, or exchange unstructured messages such as natural language for the ideal situation. And finally, we are seeking some comment and collaborators, and we will do something in the next step, the protocol selection and gap analysis, and design the interaction flows and messages for more common and more valuable troubleshooting cases. And we will deep dive and define new extensions for the protocol, and we'll cover more kinds of scenarios, including network troubleshooting, measurement, traffic optimization, security, or we may consider interact with network controller. For example, controller replaces user to raise a question. And I'm not sure is it in the scope of ANIMA working group. And we will give more illustrations for using A2A, MCP, or GRASP as the agent communication protocol. And thanks, the comment and collaboration is welcome. Thank you.
So, Mahesh speaking as an AD, thanks first of all for bringing this work. This is an advice actually for all work group chairs that I'm giving, is for all work related to AI agents, please redirect them to the agent-to-agent mailing list. I put a note also in the chat window to indicate that that is centralizing all these requests because we see
which one is that?
Agent to agent. You'll see it in the chat window. Mailing list. Send these drafts to that because that's where a dispatch function will look at all these drafts to determine whether we need a new working group, a new area maybe, for all this work related to agent rather than, and kind of prevent some of the work group shopping that seems to be going on.
So, I mean, from my perspective, I think that obviously it would be good to educate the whole AI, community in the IETF about the value of what the already existing work on the ANI, which is how we call all the things we've done, right? So the connectivity, discovery, and distribution of keys can bring to something like that. And obviously, if agent work happens, they can reuse these components. And we would call, from the ANIMA perspective, whatever agents are doing ASA, right? Whether that means ASA need to be done in ANIMA or not, I have no opinion, but the things we've already done is certainly something I'd hate to see being replicated. Like, oh, for AI agents, we need to do new bootstrap or new connectivity
Right.
or new discovery, right? Those things. So I think that's maybe something we want to start in ANIMA to think writing together. Even whether the draft goes anywhere or not isn't even important, just to make sure that, you know, the AI community knows what we've been doing. And then specifically to all the agent stuff, I think I've browsed through all these drafts, and the thing that I was always missing was where the heck is now here an actual inference engine that is intelligent,
Right.
but requires 6 GB of and a big NPU, right? Because without these things, we're nowhere. And every time I ask somebody, that's in the cloud. And you know, for a lot of use cases, that's not sufficient. So I think that's what I would love to see, and that's of course a discussion for that mailing list, right?
Exactly.
Where is the intelligent, and who pays for, you know, the NPU and the memory on all the places where we would love to have intelligence?
Sure.
Okay, just got
Thank
a
you.
quick comment here on the work presented. So I think the GRASP protocol could be very well used for, of course, discovering endpoints. Endpoints could announce some MCP interface, like, okay, if you're an agent, you can use me in this way, so that can be advertised. And the agent can go around the network shopping to find these endpoints and use them. So in that case, the intelligence could be outside of the network elements. It could also be a network element on the network, on the ACP using that. A more intelligent one that goes to the less intelligent one and shops around. So that's all good. I think GRASP does not define any security for the individual point-to-point links at this moment. So I think that needs to be then considered as a missing thing in GRASP, maybe, if you want security per point-to-point link. Yeah.
There was also the draft, and I need to bring it up again, where I was saying, you know, the ACP free ANI, so that we break down the overhead of building the ANI into existing networks to its minimum. If basically we really want to make it shoppable by more agents, right? But yeah, well, thank you very much. I think we actually
Okay,
did
thank you.
manage.
Hi.
Oh,
Can I give some word here? I mean, for me, the new words AI agent is not really new. It's just some kind of entity or network element who leads the exchange, information or messages in the network. Its behaviors is exactly the same we trade for years. So until we see some new behavior model, we can reuse the existing protocols. There's no need to reinvent the tires again. And Grasp is one of the super, protocol we designed to, have all the behavior message exchange behaviors. It can be, meet your requirements just as you're listed. So we have all those tools for you to use, just to put the use case on it, right? Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Esko, you're done?
Yes, sorry.
Bing, how about you?
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. A quick echo to our AD's comment, but he's not here. I think the agent-to-agent mailing list might not be a very suitable place. For me, I see this work as just a AI enhanced version of the ESA, which is already defined in Anima's architecture. So I think Anima might be a much more a suitable place to have this discussion rather than the agent-to-agent mailing list. That mailing list is more about the general AI agents that running in the clouds to do discovery and to do agent-to-agent communication. But I think Mao's work is directly related to ANIMA's charter. Yeah, that's my personal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bing, I think I can partly agree with you, but in order to do that, you may need to, get rid of the word agent. You may get, down to the more detailed requirements for your communication case. Then we can talk about how to design a specific SA to do whatever the message exchange you want to do. Yeah, that would be the case if you want to say.
I agree. Maybe it's a terminology issue. The AI agent is a little bit misleading for people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the protocol consideration that we can to think about grasp more, especially in ANIMA context.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you. I think we are over time already. Terence?
Yep. You want to have the last words?
Yeah. I know we still have one proposal request, but it's over time. We still encourage people to bring your work to the ANIMA working group if that's considered to be in the scope. Anyway, the mailing list is more open and proper working place to discuss all those new works. The onset meeting is only one of the extension after we have the good discussion in the mailing list. So please do bring your work into the mailing list and invoke discussing there. Thank you all for this meeting session, and hopefully see you all in Shenzhen, China, IETF 1 to 5. Thank you all. Yeah, we are close the meeting.
All right. Oh, 2 hours was not too long.
You thought so.
Yeah, I'm sorry.